It's not. There we go.
We had 20 teams and 10 pitches. Fantastic idea. Actually, 20 pitches earlier, but 10 just now. So we're going to start with, let's start with you, Rusty. Thoughts, reflections, what did you hear?
Yeah, my first reflection and thought, and I'm always blown away by this, is these are unbelievable ideas in like a 5-hour period of time. So I think people should be pretty fired up.
We can hear him. We can hear you.
I think people should be pretty fired up of what you can accomplish in a really short period of time. So I hope that everyone is physically, spiritually, or philosophically taking a bow for all the work and commitment that they've made over a very short period of time addressing some of these issues. So I think that's pretty amazing. So 6 reflection points that I had that I thought were consistent themes that were interesting. One is the power of coaching and mentoring. Clearly, that was a consistent theme of the idea of not just the individual, but the ability to be part of something larger, to work with mentors and coaches that provide expertise that can help with managing issues of confidence and trust, was something that we talked about earlier in our session, but also has been consistent in a lot of these solutions. The second theme that's related to it is the idea of community, obviously peer-to-peer. Not are we just all in this together, but the idea of adult learners that have missed certain opportunities for various reasons in their lives, the need for them to find other peers to help them through that process, to create something that is collaborative and hopefully that can be scalable and more sustainable through a peer-to-peer model, also seemed like a consistent theme that came up across Boston, DC, as well as San Francisco. Another point that I saw that I'll merge a couple of ideas is the power of integration. None of this can be done alone. So we talked about corporate partnership, advocacy organizations like AARP, the role that corporations are clearly going to need to play and continue to play, institutional partners. There was discussion about the role that community colleges can play in universities. It's an obvious point, but it's one that I've yet to see any successful, sustainable startup in this space that does not heavily rely on non-company, non-startup resources from an institutional standpoint. So it really does require a level of integration, which is very challenging, but it's one that I think almost every team touched on, with bringing in these partners across these institutional channels. The final 2 points that I thought were interesting that were takeaways for me was using what already exists, which is 3 times I think I heard the cell phone. So I think that we always want to be focused on mobile, which is great. But the reality is that flip phones and cell phones can be really powerful tools to help underserved classes or certain communities with content, with curation, and with knowledge. And I love that I heard that a couple times in the ideas that it was not just the most shiny digital app that's going to be used on the greatest computer, but could actually be used across other tools and assets that frankly may be more appropriate for some of the community and the constituents that we're talking about. And then the final thing that we talked about earlier, and again it came up in different applications with companies, is this powerful idea of language. And not just with certain constituents that may not speak English as their first language, but I think at least 2 or 3 ideas were around financial literacy and financial language, which I thought was a really powerful angle to take. I think we're all can be really fearful of not understanding certain languages, and I think it's especially relevant with adult learners in this market that we're addressing today. But I was really impressed and thought it was an innovative model to look at the role that financial literacy can play in providing some kind of platform that then is relevant to a lot of other aspects of solutions for adult learners. So really impressed. Want to thank Digital Promise and all these other groups across the country. But I think you guys rocked for a 4 to 5 hour session, so it's awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rusty, and thanks for hosting us there at 1776 in Washington, D.C. Moving over to Boston, Deb Quazzo from Chicago, but in Boston. You want to tell us what you thought?
Matt and I are both from Chicago and Boston. Anyway, no, I completely agree with Rusty. I think he said pretty much everything that I was going to say, and I second all of his thoughts. Great ideas. I actually love the. totally agree on the mobile point. I think everything has to be able to be done on a phone. I think we get way ahead of ourselves, frankly, in the K-12 system. I think for this marketplace, we've got to be focused on the mobile phone. That was really good to hear on a lot of the ideas. I also love the idea that the fact that everybody focused on fundamental grassroots issues, childcare, being able to speak English, ability to do basic fundamental financial literacy skills. Student acquisition models. How do we acquire students in a environment where everybody may not be acquirable on the internet or whatever? So I thought the fact that focus on grassroots core problems as also being a way to teach, having teachable moments in solving those problems was also pretty ingenious in a lot of the ideas that I heard. So I think those were the main ones for me. I think you guys also identified just some relatively jaw-dropping fundamental issues, that impediments that make this market not work as well as other markets. Things like, people not being able to get their assessment feedback was sort of just shocking, and that we should be able to address some of those sorts of things as low-hanging fruit in the near term. So I think those were really my thoughts, and it was really great ideas. And thank you, Karen and Digital Promise and everybody else. It was terrific.
Excellent. So yeah. Yes and yes, and especially the point that Rusty made about wow, 5 hours, amazing ideas. Even the ones that didn't present from Boston were impressive in different ways. I got some good ideas out of it. I'm sure it's true of the rest of the cities. But 3 thematic observations, somewhat similar to Rusty and Deborah's point, but maybe a little bit different. The social piece. I love that many of the groups included a social element, but interestingly, kind of recognize that you could do that in different ways. So that could be like an expert. That could be sort of a near peer who just went through something that you went through. That could be someone in your family that you're learning along with, but you included that element in whatever way was relevant to your solution. Somewhat related, kind of capturing network value or the human value that exists, through the curate approach, or through on-demand here, over here. Recognizing that we don't need necessarily more money, or we don't need to build new things if we can actually capture the contributions of individuals in a network. And third, most important to my mind, was sort of the life relevance that you built into almost all of the solutions. And I'll say 2 things there quickly. One, as Dr. Estrada talked about this morning, workplace contextualization or work contextualization, and we especially saw that with the language and skill lab here. I love the sort of the precision and the immediacy of that. And then there were several other solutions that, to financial needs or whatever it was, you're just sort of going about your daily life, or I could go through each one and find this is going on in my life. I need to learn for this reason immediately, and I know why. I thought that was very powerful.
Fantastic. That was a great wrap up. The only thing I would also add that people touched on is also the power of place. And there are places people go throughout their days that offer powerful learning opportunities. So just hugely inspired, also amazing what everybody accomplished. Again, through the power of networks and collaboration, through the power of information, the paper that we provided you, other information that you have, the power of perspectives and what you bring to the table, everybody from their daily experiences, just kind of amazing. So I want to do a few very important thank yous. This would absolutely not have happened. It was kind of a crazy idea to see if we could connect everybody up. But first of all, a big thank you to the technology. It was called Zoom. In case anybody's looking for this kind of technology, Zoom worked today. So thank you, Zoom. I don't even know. Okay, second thing is the people from our location. So here in Chicago, Phyllis Lockett and Jessica Smith, you are rock stars. They just totally pulled it off here. In Boston, Eileen Rudden and Alyssa Kierkegaard totally pulled it off. In Washington, D.C., Rusty Greif and Ashley Summers pulled it out, and amazing engagement there. In Silicon Valley, in Redwood City at GST Labs, Nancy Liu and Megan Jordan, thank you very much for all of your incredible work on this. And finally, in New York City, Jonathan Harbour and Ash Kuluarachi for engaging and helping us connect in New York City. So the last thing I wanted to mention, a couple of things. Yesterday there was an associated event at MIT Media Labs where they talked a lot about a lot of this. They didn't do any design work. They mostly talked and had drinks. So there you go. That was in Boston yesterday. I don't know. Did anything else happen there? Somebody else can fill us in. The second thing is tonight, and I think Shlomi mentioned it. There's another event in New York City that Shlomi talked about. So we kind of loosely called this kind of the Week of Adult Learning. Really trying to raise awareness across the country and get the smartest people, the innovators, the designers, the entrepreneurs, connecting with researchers, with practitioners, with people everywhere, and figuring out how we can raise up this population and solve. Improve the opportunity to learn for the undereducated, underliteracy, low literacy, low numeracy, low job skills adults. So I hope you all continue thinking about all this. I know at least one person in this room is thinking about what to do next. So I'm sure there are many more people who are thinking how they're going to take this and kind of run with it. And finally, last really important thank you, Patty Konstantakis is our Director of Adult Learning Initiatives, and Gabe Martinez is also heads up our adult learning initiatives. He runs the Beacon Project, which finds inspiring and interesting locations where really kind of powerful learning is taking place in local context. So to Patty and Gabe, you guys are rock stars, and we'll kind of figure out what we're doing next, but that was awesome. And then also Michelle she got married, Michelle Draband, who has supported all the technical work and everything else throughout this process. So Patty's saying we got to go because they got to be out of that room in, I don't know, 1 minute or something. Patty, do you have any last things to say? Or are you good?
Mostly, thank you. I think this has been a great day. And it wouldn't have happened without all of you. So
yep.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Pass on everybody's back and travel safely. All right.